The thing about family dinners is that they are never just dinner. They are auditions. They are negotiations. They are group projects where one person does all the work. 3 people take credit, and someone always spills something that stains forever. We were at my parents' house 3 days before Mom's big birthday, the milestone one, the kind that comes with phrases like celebration of life, and I cannot believe you are doing this to me on my birthday, even when it is not her birthday yet. The dining table looked like it had been arranged by a magazine called People Who Have Never Met Children. Candles, cloth, napkins. A centerpiece that was clearly not built to survive real family use. Mom sat at the head of the table like a queen told her kingdom was cozy. Dad hovered nearby with the nervous energy of a man who has spent years trying to keep peace by disappearing into the wallpaper. Across from us sat my sister Hannah, as if the room had been built around her. Her husband Daniel sat beside her, smiling politely in the way people do when they are trapped in conversations about expensive wallpaper or taxes. Their children were scattered around the table in the relaxed, messy way that proves nobody had ever punished them for existing too loudly. Eli, the oldest, was 13, and already had that teenage talent for looking bored and offended at the same time. Lila, 9, had bright eyes and the habit of hearing everything. Levi, 5, was doing the kind of quiet chaos adults always underestimate until something important disappears. My husband Micah sat next to me, calm as always. Micah believes there is a peaceful way through almost anything. He believes in deep breaths and careful words. I believe in evidence. Mom was talking about the party, of course she was. She leaned back and said the venue was perfect. The cake would be elegant, and there would be none of that childish nonsense. Hannah laughed and told her it was her birthday, and she could do whatever she wanted. I kept eating and tried to stay neutral. Neutral is a skill I learned young. It is like sitting in a chair with one bad leg and pretending you are comfortable. My daughter Emma sat across from me, 12 years old, soft-hearted and observant, the kind of child who notices when adults are pretending. She had been quiet all dinner, picking at her food the way children do when they are hungry, but not sure it is safe to be cheerful. Then Mom started talking about decorations and dress code, and Emma looked up just a little. She asked the sweetest question in the world. What should I wear? Emma's question was soft and innocent. It was the kind of question that really means I want to come the right way. I want to belong. Just tell me what the rules are. I smiled at her and said we would figure something out. Something she felt good in. Mom did not even look at her. She lifted her glass, took a sip of water, and spoke in the same calm tone people use to mention they changed laundry detergent. She said my daughter was not invited to her birthday. The words landed on the table and stayed there. Emma's face changed so fast, it felt like watching a light go out. Frozen is the only word for it. She did not cry. She did not get angry. She just stopped. Everyone else kept moving like nothing had happened. Forks touched plates. Hannah glanced toward her children like she was already picturing birthday photos. Dad cleared his throat and still said nothing useful. Micah's hand tightened slightly around his fork. I blinked once, slowly, because part of me still wanted to believe I had heard wrong. Maybe she meant the dinner. Maybe she had phrased it badly. But that made no sense. We were already at dinner. So I asked her what she meant. My voice sounded too calm, which is usually when I am closest to becoming impossible. Mom gave me that thin greeting card smile she uses when she wants to make cruelty sound polished. She said she had decided it should be adults only. It was her special day. Emma would not fit in. Emma was staring at her plate now. She did not move. She did not speak. I looked across the table and asked if that meant Hannah's children were not coming either. Mom waved one hand like I was being ridiculous. She said no. They had to make an exception for them. Hannah lifted her eyebrows in that smug little way that said yes, obviously. I asked why. Mom tilted her head and told me I would understand. They were different. Different. The word people use when they do not want to say favorite out loud. So I said the rule was adults only, except there were exceptions. and Emma was not one of them. Mom sighed and told me not to make this a thing. A thing. That was her word for any moment when the truth threatened her comfort. Emma sat there, doing the saddest thing a child can do. She accepted it. That was the moment something inside me went cold. I set my fork down carefully. Not hard. Not dramatic. Just gentle enough that the sound made my point for me. Then I said we were leaving. Mom's head snapped up, and she said, "Excuse me," like I was the one breaking some sacred family rule. I told her I was not going to sit there and pretend this was normal. If my daughter was not welcome, then neither were we. Mom rolled her eyes with the lazy confidence of someone who had spent years assuming I would absorb whatever she threw at me. She called me dramatic. Dad finally said my name, quiet and useless, the way he always did when he wanted conflict to disappear without asking anyone to be better. Micah stood when I stood. He did not make a speech. He did not look around for approval. He just got up beside me, silent and steady, and that mattered. Emma pushed her chair back too. She moved like she had finally been given permission to breathe again. I did not wait for anyone's blessing. I did not argue. I did not try to explain to people who had just watched a child be humiliated and kept eating. I gathered my daughter and walked out. Behind us, Mom muttered something sharp and familiar. Drama queen, as always. In the car, the silence had weight. Micah started the engine and kept his eyes on the road, like the road was the only safe thing in the world. After a while, he spoke softly. Maybe she really is doing adults only. Maybe it is just a rule. I laughed once, short and dry. It is not a rule if it only applies to us, I said. There were exceptions for them, not for our child. Micah exhaled. He understood. He always does. Then Emma spoke from the back seat, very small and very careful. She asked if Grandma loved her cousins more. There are questions you can answer. There are questions you want to answer. And then there are questions that make you realize you are responsible for what happens next. I turned just enough to see her in the mirror. She was doing that brave child thing again, trying to hold herself together so she would not make anything worse. My chest hurt. I wanted to tell her it was a misunderstanding. I wanted to lie. But she already knew the truth in her bones. So I told her the only honest thing I could say without breaking her. I love you. And I am not going to let anyone make you feel like you do not belong. Emma nodded like she had been waiting for exactly that sentence. When we got home, I tucked her into bed earlier than usual. Not because she was tired, but because the day had taken something from her. Then I sat alone in my kitchen, staring at nothing, while the anger started gathering itself into something sharper. Mom's birthday was in 3 days. I was not going, but I was not going to ignore it either. Instead, I decided to send her a gift. And when she opened it, she was going to understand exactly what she had done. People love to say that is just how she is when they talk about mothers like mine. They say it with a shrug, like favoritism is weather and cruelty is an inherited condition. Nobody can help. But I grew up in that house. I know the difference between a storm and someone deliberately choosing who gets wet. Hannah is 2 years younger than I am. Only 2. But in our family, those 2 years became a magical explanation for everything, whenever it benefited her. When I was 9 and she was 7, she was just a baby. When I was 13 and she was 11, she was too sensitive. When I was 16 and she was 14, I was told not to be hard on her. Then I became an adult, and somehow that meant I could handle anything. Rules were Mom's favorite tool. They looked fair from the outside. They sounded reasonable. They gave her the comfort of being right. The only problem was that rules were mostly for me. One of the clearest examples happened at Hannah's 8th birthday party. Mom taped a hand-lettered sign by the living room doorway. Party games for kids up to 10. I had turned 10 barely 2 months earlier. 2 months. I was still a child. I still wanted to play. Before the first game started, Mom pulled me aside and said I was too old to participate. "Rules are rules," she told me, then handed me paper plates and said I could help instead. So I worked the party while the others played. Then I saw Ethan and Maya in the game circle. Ethan was 11. Maya was older than I was. They were Mom's friend Linda's children. Invited, included, laughing like the sign did not apply to them. When I whispered that they were older than the age limit, Mom did not even hesitate. She said they were a special case. That was when I learned rules were only rules until she decided otherwise. That pattern never stopped. It just changed costumes as we got older. When I had a school award, Mom would say we could not all go and that I should not make a big deal of it. When Hannah had something similar, suddenly schedules opened up, relatives were invited, and dinner became a celebration. I learned to celebrate quietly. I learned to look grateful for scrap. By the time I had Emma, I told myself I was past all of it. Then Hannah had children, and I realized the whole system had simply found new people to use. Hannah and Daniel had 3 kids: Noah, Ella, and Owen. Micah and I had 1. Emma is bright and funny and deeply kind. She also feels everything hard, even when she tries not to show it. At family gatherings, Hannah's children were treated like the default grandchildren, the ones who naturally belong. They got outings and sleepovers and movie nights. Sometimes, Emma was included. Sometimes. And even when she was, it felt like she was being allowed into someone else's world for a little while. Not welcomed into her own family. If I asked why she had been left out, Mom would say they were siblings, and of course they did things together. As if being a cousin meant Emma mattered less. As if being my daughter made her optional. Emma never complained directly. She did the more painful thing. She acted like she did not care. I watched her come home quieter. I watched her hesitate before asking if she had been invited. I watched her learn to expect less. Then came the money. At some point, my parents started needing help. First it was one repair, one bill, one rough month. Mom framed it as fairness. "Both of you contribute equally," she said, meaning Hannah and me. "It is only right." So I agreed, because I had been trained to be reasonable. Then the exception arrived right on time. Hannah could not do equal because she had 3 children. Money was tight. Life was hard. Mom said it like gravity. I had 1 child, which apparently meant I had extra. Without anyone ever saying it directly, the numbers shifted. Hannah's share shrank. Mine grew. Eventually I was covering most of it. Then my parents' mortgage became a problem, and Mom promised my half would only be temporary. That temporary half lasted 5 years. When her milestone birthday came around, they opened a shared account for party expenses. Communal. Fair. Practical. Most of the money in it was mine. Mom and Hannah planned everything, booked everything, and used the card linked to that account like my role was funding, not family. Then Emma asked what she should wear, and Mom told her she was not invited. That was when I stopped making excuses. The morning after that dinner, I woke up with a strange kind of peace. Not the soft kind, not the gentle kind. The kind that comes when you finally stop arguing with yourself and decide. Micah was making coffee. He looked at me the way he always does when he can feel something coming before I say it. I told him simply that we were not going to Mom's birthday. None of us. He set the mug down carefully and asked if I was sure. It was her big birthday after all. I said if Emma was not welcome, then neither were we. Emma shuffled into the kitchen, still carrying yesterday's sadness in the way she moved. I told her we were not going. Her shoulders dropped like she had been holding her breath all night. She just said, "Okay," very quietly. Relief does not always look happy on a child. Sometimes it looks like finally being allowed to unclench. I watched her face and felt my resolve harden. Then I opened my banking app. I did not cry. I did not rant. I did not draft imaginary speeches in my head. I acted. First, I canceled the standing order for mortgage help. $950 a month. Gone. Then family support. $300 a month. Gone. Then utilities top up. $120 a month. Gone. 1. Tap. Tap. T. Tap. Top. It was absurd how easy it was. 5 years of pressure and obligation, undone in less than a minute, and one biometric scan. I stared at the screen and thought this was exactly why they liked the arrangement. It demanded nothing from them except my compliance. Then I dealt with the party account. There was a virtual card attached to it, shared in the sense that everyone benefited while I carried the responsibility. A few early charges had already cleared, deposits and starter payments, but the largest ones were still ahead. The final vendor charges. The venue balance. The kind of payments that land right before an event. Mom assumed that card would keep working. She always assumed my role was to fund and endure. I froze the card, blocked it, disabled it. However, the app wanted to describe it. The result was the same. Nothing else was getting approved. After I blocked the card, I opened a shared account and looked at the balance. $4,800. My contribution was $4,200 of that. I transferred my money back to myself. No note. No warning. No dramatic flourish. Just a clean transfer. Quiet as breath. If my daughter was not welcome, then my money was not welcome either. That part was simple. The next part needed more care. I was not going to scream at Mom on the phone and let her turn my anger into proof that I was the problem. I was not going to show up at the party and give her the public scene she would later rewrite for sympathy. I decided to send a gift instead. A real box. Wrapped neatly. Nothing flashy. Nothing that looked like a bomb had been tucked inside. Because the point was not spectacle. The point was clarity. Inside the box, I placed a letter. That was the gift, really. The kind you remember long after the wrapping paper is gone. I wrote it slowly and without insults. That mattered to me. I did not want rage on the page. I wanted truth. I told her I had spent years making excuses for her. I told her I kept pretending it was not favoritism, not exclusion, not cruelty dressed up as rules. Then I wrote the one thing that changed everything. She crossed a line she could not uncross when she excluded my daughter while inviting the other grandchildren. She said it sweetly, like Emma would not understand. But Emma understood. I watched her go still at that table. I watched her try not to cry. I wrote that I was a mother first, and my job was to protect my child. I wrote that we would not attend her birthday, any future family events, or continue this relationship. I wrote that there would be no more calls, no more texts, no more messages through other people. And because there would be no relationship, there would be no more financial support. Effective immediately. I folded the letter, placed it in the box, and sealed it. Then I mailed it to arrive on the day of the party. Time so she would open it while she was expecting admiration. On the day of the party, our house felt strangely calm. Not empty. Just lighter. Micah took Emma out for ice cream. Not as a reward and not as a distraction. More like a quiet statement that we were allowed to have a good day, even when other people were angry. I stayed home. My phone sat on the counter like a sleeping animal. I did not have to wait long. The first call came in the middle of the afternoon. Mom's name lit up the screen. I let it ring twice before answering. Because I am still me. When I picked up, her voice came through in a full explosion. She demanded to know how I dared do this to her on her birthday. I said nothing at first. Silence can be useful when someone expects you to panic. Then she shouted that she had opened my present. Of course she had. I could picture it clearly. She probably smiled, held it up for everyone to see, and expected something sentimental that made her look loved. Instead, she got the letter. In the background, I could hear guests talking, glasses clinking, movement, and then Dad's voice, lower and closer to the phone. He asked what she had done. Not to me. To her. like he was standing in the fallout and still pretending the disaster had appeared on its own. Mom said I humiliated her in front of everyone. I told her I had not read the letter out loud. She did that part herself. Then her voice changed. The outrage tangled with panic. She demanded to know what nonsense I meant about money. Vendors were calling. The card was not working. The account was empty. What had I done? I leaned against the counter and told her I had withdrawn my financial support, effective immediately. She said I could not do that. They needed it. The nerve of that would have been funny if it had not been so familiar. I told her she had excluded my daughter. She did not get access to Emma, and she did not get access to my wallet. She tried to repeat that it was adults only. I reminded her that Noah, Ella, and Owen were there. Interesting rule, I said. Then she made the mistake of saying they were different. That was when my jaw locked. Emma is family, I said. Or she was supposed to be. Dad's voice came through again in the background, low and urgent, saying my name the way he always did when he wanted a situation to shrink without anyone having to be honest. I could picture him standing behind Mom, trying to smooth her down, trying to make reality more convenient. Mom's voice sharpened, and she asked if this meant I was really cutting them off, as if I had not spelled it out clearly enough in the letter she opened in front of her own guests. I told her I was protecting my child. She called me selfish. I took one slow breath and told her this was my boundary. Then I said not to call me again, and I ended the call. The silence afterward felt complete in a way I had not experienced before. It did not feel lonely. It felt spacious. The smear campaign started before my phone had even cooled down. That might sound dramatic, but speed is part of how families like mine work. They do not let truth sit still long enough to breathe. They flood the room with their version first. By the next morning, my phone was buzzing like it had a job. An aunt, a cousin, a family friend I had not heard from in years. Someone who once borrowed a casserole dish and never returned it. I answered the first few calls out of habit. What did you do was the tone, even when it arrived, dressed as concern. How could you do this to your mother? You only get one mom. Family's family. By the third call, I stopped engaging in the script. I said it was private, and I was not discussing it. Some people huffed and hung up. Some tried again with softer pressure. But she is your mother. Yes, I said. And this is still private. A few people I actually cared about approached it differently. They did not begin with judgment. They asked what happened. So I gave them the shortest true answer possible. I had been financially supporting my parents for years, and they excluded Emma from the birthday while inviting the other grandchildren. They called it adults only, but it was not adults only. That usually bought me silence. Then, from the few decent people, I got the same response in different words. That is not okay. Hearing someone else say it plainly mattered more than I expected. Then the next escalation arrived in the mail. It was an actual bill, printed on letterhead, formal, clean, and insulting. $2,360 for the birthday venue's final balance, due in 5 days. There were line items and totals and polite business language, and under responsible party and billing contact sat my name, my phone number, and my email. I stared at it for a full minute, waiting for it to become less absurd. It did not, so I called the vendor. I stayed calm, because calm unsettles people more than outrage ever will. I told them I had not signed this contract. I had not authorized it, and I would not be paying it. The woman on the phone sounded tired, which I understood. Everyone is tired. She told me my name was on the contract. I told her someone had put it there without my consent, and she needed to pursue the actual organizer or signatory. I asked her to make a note and remove my contact information from the account. She said she would. When I ended the call, I felt a grim kind of satisfaction. Not joy, not triumph, just the clean feeling of finally refusing to carry someone else's decisions. That afternoon, the knocking started. Not a polite knock, not a neighbor's hello. Pounding. Heavy, impatient, entitled pounding. Micah looked up from the kitchen and raised his eyebrows. Emma was at the table doing homework, and I saw her whole body go still at the sound. That was what I hated most. The way adult chaos kept reaching for her. I told her gently to go to her room and put on her headphones. She hesitated and asked if it was Grandma. I did not lie. I said yes, but she was safe. She nodded and disappeared down the hall. Micah moved closer to me without saying anything. Quiet support in human form. I opened the door. Mom and Dad were there, faces tight with outrage and desperation. Hannah stood beside them, jaw set like she had shown up prepared to win. Daniel was a step behind, looking like he would rather be trapped anywhere else. Mom did not bother easing into it. She asked if I could at least pay for the birthday. Mom demanded to know whether I understood what I had done. She said they were already in debt. They could not pay, and how were they supposed to manage now? I blinked at her and asked if she was really standing on my porch asking me to fund a party my daughter was not welcome at. Dad stepped in with the softer version, the one that always arrives after Mom fails at force. He said I should just help them get through this one thing. Mom cut him off and said I had money. I always had money. I almost smiled, because dry humor is sometimes the only barrier between composure and screaming. I told her I had money because I worked, because Micah worked, because we budgeted, and because I had been paying their bills. Hannah stepped forward and said this was unfair. I looked right at her and asked what exactly was unfair. That I was no longer financing her life, because she chose to have more children than I did. Her eyes flashed. She said I was acting like they had done something wrong. I laughed quietly then, because the question answered itself. Besides excluding my daughter from her grandmother's birthday and pretending it was a rule, what exactly had they done wrong? Mom tried the adults-only line again. I told her to stop pretending. Then I leaned against the doorframe and said the part I should have said years earlier. They did not treat me like a daughter. They did not treat Emma like a granddaughter. They only treated my money like family. Dad said that was not fair. I told him it was accurate. Mom snapped that family helps family. I nodded and said she was right. Family helps family. Family does not single out a child and then call it a boundary. Family does not keep one granddaughter and cut out the other. I told her I was stepping out of the role she had assigned me, the one where I paid and smiled, while my daughter learned she was optional. Mom asked if I was really doing this, really cutting them off. I said yes. Then she asked if it was all over one party. And that was when something settled in my chest with complete certainty. I told her it was never one party. It was one party too many. For a second, nobody spoke. Dad's shoulders sagged. Hannah looked angry, but underneath it I could see something else. Fear, maybe. The fear of being next in line to carry what I had carried. Mom turned away first, muttering that this was unbelievable after everything they had done for me. I did not chase after the sentence. I just watched them leave my porch one by one. Mom, dramatic. Dad, diminished. Hannah, offended. Daniel, relieved. And when Emma cracked her bedroom door and asked if they were gone, I told her yes. Then I told her something even more important. She was not in trouble. None of it was her fault. And I was never going to let anyone treat her like she did not matter again. 6 months later, the house felt different. Not quieter exactly. Lighter. Emma had started singing again. Little scraps of songs under her breath while she did homework or brushed her hair. Micah would catch my eye over his coffee sometimes, like he wanted to say, "See, this is what peace sounds like." And he was right. I stopped flinching every time my phone buzzed. We had money again. Real money. The kind that lets you replace a broken dishwasher without calling a family meeting or feeling guilty for buying winter boots. The guilt attempt still came in smaller forms. A cousin checking in. A family friend claiming not to take sides while very clearly taking one. I kept my responses short. Sometimes I did not respond at all. Through the grapevine, I heard the only part that really mattered. They adjusted. My parents downsized. Mom picked up part-time work. Hannah got a real job. They survived. That was the part that stayed with me. They always could survive. They just preferred not to when I was available to carry things for them. Emma felt the change too, even if she could not have explained it that way. She moved through the house without that old background tension. She did not ask before laughing too loudly. She did not brace every time someone mentioned family. One evening, she spilled juice at the table and immediately started apologizing. And I realized how deep the old training had gone. I stopped her, handed her a towel, and told her spills were just spills. She looked at me for a second, then smiled in that careful way children do when they are testing whether they are really safe. I smiled back, because she was. That was the whole point. The world had not ended when I cut my parents off. Nothing collapsed except the fantasy that I was responsible for everyone else's comfort. What remained was simpler. Our bills got paid. Our house stayed calm. My daughter got to be a child, instead of an exception someone had to manage. For the first time in years, my life did not feel like a long apology. It felt like mine. A full year passed before Hannah called. Emma was out with a friend that afternoon, which was probably why I answered. If she had been home, I might have let it ring until it stopped. Hannah's voice sounded different right away. Not softer, exactly. More tired. She said Mom had been a lot. I let the silence sit there, because I had learned that silence often makes people tell the truth faster than questions do. Then she admitted Mom had been leaning on her now. Money, time, errands, emotional labor, all of it. And she said something I had never heard from her before. She said she had not realized how much I'd actually been doing. Not really? I leaned back in my chair and asked about the birthday. There was a pause. Then she said she got it now, at least more than she had. What Mom said about Emma was not right. It was not a grand apology. It did not erase anything. It did not heal the years underneath it. But it was the closest thing to accountability our family had ever managed. Hannah said she was not calling to pull me back in. She just wanted me to know. I believed her enough to stay on the line, which was already more grace than I had expected to offer. When the call ended, Micah looked over from the counter and asked how I felt. I answered without needing time to think. Steady. That was the word. Not happy. Not vindicated. Just steady. Because our home was calm. Emma was safe. And my life no longer depended on earning tenderness from people who had always treated it like a reward. Hannah's call did not open a door for me. It only confirmed what I already knew. Distance had not ruined them. It had forced them to face the shape of their own choices. That was not my job anymore. My job was the same as it had been the night Emma sat frozen at that dinner table. Protect the child in front of me. Tell the truth. Refuse the role that asked me to pay for my own daughter's exclusion. Everything after that was just evidence that I had been right to leave the system before it taught Emma to shrink the way it taught me. I do not spend much time now wondering whether I went too far. That question belongs to the version of me who still believed fairness could be negotiated if I explained myself well enough. The truth is much simpler than that. My daughter sat at a family dinner and was told she did not belong. Not because there was no room. Not because of a real rule. Because someone wanted her excluded and expected me to swallow it the way I had swallowed everything else. That was the moment the old pattern finally became impossible to defend. I stopped calling it misunderstanding. I stopped calling it stress. I stopped calling it just how she is. When people say that phrase, what they usually mean is they would prefer the injured person keep absorbing the injury so everybody else can stay comfortable. I am not interested in that bargain anymore. Emma does not need grandparents who rank children by convenience. She does not need a family table where she has to wonder whether she qualifies this time. She needs what every child needs: predictability, safety, love that does not come with an exception list. That's what we built after the cutoff. Not something flashy, Not some movie version of healing. Just the slow, ordinary kind. Bills paid by the people who owe them. Food eaten without tension. A house where my daughter's laughter is not an inconvenience. I used to think adulthood meant tolerating pain with grace. Now I think it means noticing when grace has become a costume for self-betrayal and taking it off. Mom thought the birthday was her milestone. In a way, she was right. It marked the end of one role and the beginning of another. She lost the daughter who funded her version of family. Emma and I gained a life where belonging was not something we had to audition for. That is not revenge. It is correction. And it is the first truly honest family tradition I have ever chosen. If I learned anything from all of it, it was this. People will call almost anything a rule if the rule protects their comfort. They will call favoritism tradition. They will call exclusion boundaries. They will call your pain drama if naming it threatens the story they prefer. For years, I kept translating my family's behavior into softer language because I wanted to believe there was still something there worth saving. I told myself Mom was difficult, not cruel. I told myself Hannah was blind, not selfish. I told myself Dad was passive, not complicit. I told myself Emma was resilient, as if resilience should be a child's full-time job. But the birthday dinner stripped all of that down to the bone. My daughter asked what she should wear, and my mother answered with rejection so casual, it was almost elegant. That was the moment everything clarified. Emma was never the problem. I was not the problem either. The problem was a family system built around exceptions. One where some people got warmth by default, and others were expected to earn scraps. Once I stopped feeding that system, it had to expose itself. That was why the money mattered. Not because money was the heart of the story, but because it showed exactly what my place had been. Useful. Dependable. Funded. Never equal. The second I withdrew the financial support, everyone acted shocked, as if I had broken a sacred promise. But I had only done what they had already done, emotionally. I stopped offering what was never being met with love. Emma does not ask anymore whether she is invited. She does not ask who likes her more. She does not stare at adults trying to guess whether she is taking up too much space. That is the real ending, not the canceled payments or the angry calls, or Hannah finally seeing one thin slice of the truth. The real ending is my daughter getting to grow up without learning the lesson I learned. She is not an exception. She is not a special case. She is not too much. She is a child who deserves a table where her place is assumed. And I finally became the kind of mother who will leave any room, cut off any payment, and disappoint any relative necessary to make sure she gets one.